Hello, my beautiful mamas, and welcome back to another episode of Diaries of a Mumpreneur with me, Josephine Snowling. Diaries of a Mumpreneur is all about me sharing my journey of creating a business, starting from zero, growing all the way to 7+ figures, whilst remaining a stay-at-home mum. I am all about creating wealth and abundance with ease, whilst following my passions with no sacrifices required to do this to my parenting values or any other desires that I have in my life. So if you are an aspiring mumpreneur, if you are already a mumpreneur and you want to join a community of other mumpreneurs, then make sure that you subscribe to Rebirth of the Mother, which is my YouTube channel and is where currently my podcast Diaries of a Mumpreneur is hosted. So make sure you subscribe to that and tap the notification bell so that you know when all the episodes are released. So today's episode 2, is all about structure versus flow. And it is something that I have been on a journey with into discovering that balance of getting enough structure but not too much to allow for flow in my business. And specifically, I want to talk in this episode as well about the difference between the masculine and the feminine energies around business. Now, before I say anything about masculine and feminine energies, I want to just throw some myths and some limiting beliefs out of the water. So when I talk about masculine and feminine energies, I am not talking about men and women. I am talking about energies that every single person has within them. Whether you are a man or a woman, you have both energies within you. The only difference being is that each individual has a preference for using more of one energy than another. It does not matter. So it doesn't matter if you are a woman and you have more of a preference to using masculine energy over feminine energy, or vice versa. We all have to use both of these energies, and we need them. They work together. And this is the beauty: when you can get them working together, that is when you've really got the secret nailed. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that throughout today's episode. I'm going to go and talk to you about what my current structure is for my business. So how I structure my week in order to schedule in time to focus on doing things for my business, and just some of the little pitfalls and some of the things that I've had to work through around getting this balance of structure and flow. So I want to start right at the beginning on what initially influenced my consciousness, should we say, around this idea of structure and flow. So when I say structure is the masculine energy and flow is the feminine energy. So before I had children, which was 5 years ago now, or nearly 6 now, scary. I used to work in a corporate environment. So I was a business analyst / kind of project manager. And I very much would reside in that structure energy a lot of the time. I was very much in that masculine energy when I was at work. And I think this was simply because I was not conscious of the idea of these two energies, the idea of structure and flow. I was in quite a masculine environment. So there was an influence of more of that structure, that strategy, that focus, that direction. There was more of that energy influencing my decisions on which energies to be using. And I also found that when I was coming home, I also was not aware of this idea of dropping out of this energy. So of course there's absolutely nothing wrong in using masculine energy in your business. We need to use masculine energy in our business. And if it is your preference to use a lot of masculine energy in your business, then that is great as well. But what I was really struggling with was my preference is to be more in that flow energy. My preference is to be more in that feminine energy, just as my own personal preferences. And I was not aware of being able to come back out of that masculine energy. Even when I was at home, I was kind of carrying that energy with me all of the time. And I was really finding I was getting so burnt out and exhausted. I just felt depleted, like I was literally running on embers. And I wasn't really even somebody who used to work, every hour that God sends sort of thing. I would pretty much work my 9 to 5, but I just could not drop out of that masculine energy. But once I started to become aware of this, I started doing a lot of my own personal research into this. And this came about actually through having to rediscover things in my relationship with my husband, in my marriage. So I started looking a lot into polarity between husbands and wives, between partners, basically, and how being in the same energy, both of you, is fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all, and it's needed at times. But what it does prevent is it prevents that sexual desire. It prevents that calling for intimacy, that polarity between the two of you. And so I started digging into more of this because of my marriage and wanting to change how things were kind of operating there. And this was when I started to realize why I was getting so burnt out when I was in this corporate environment. It had nothing to do with being in a corporate environment, although personally for me, that was not what my soul was really wanting. So that was another thing that was draining my energy. But it was just this fact that I was unable to drop into flow. I didn't really know what it was. Like, it would happen, but it would be, accidental. It wouldn't be conscious. And so what happened was when I realized this, when I discovered this, I kind of went the polar opposite. And I was like, I just want to be in flow. I just want to be in flow all the time. I don't want any structure. And I did this in my day-to-day life. So this was before I even started creating a business. And when I homeschooled my eldest for a little while, I very much stayed in that flow state. And it was like, we'll just get up and we'll just do what we feel like we want to do. And we'll just go with the moment. And it was great. It was enjoyable because I'd spent such a long time in that masculine energy, in that structured energy of always planning, always scheduling, just never going with the flow, going with those moments of inspiration, just always having to have some structure there constantly. And then I decided to start a business. And I had started to follow a lot of people and get very interested in this idea of running a business from that feminine energy, because we are very used to seeing business run from that masculine structure. And I think this is purely because when we look at the history of businesses and being in the workplace, it obviously has only really been in the last 100 years or so that women have started to run their own businesses, that have started moving back into the workplace. So of course we are going to have industries and we're going to have companies that are very rooted in masculine energy. And I really don't go into this whole patriarchy thing, and I just think it's a victim place to be in. Like, even when I was in my corporate job, I could have so easily turned around and blamed and said, oh, well, it was the company's fault. Like, they were really structured, they were really masculine. It was my decision as to what energy I decided to reside within at the end of the day. And so this is why we find that more of those corporate jobs are very stemmed in masculine energy. There is less about flow in there. There is obviously still elements of it, but there is a strong focus on it. And we are now kind of starting to birth this new era where we're creating businesses that still have the masculine energy, they still have the structure, but there is much more of a flow element to them. There is consciousness of flow being added to businesses. And so I started following a lot of women predominantly who are really tapping into this in their business, like really utilizing and enhancing flow. And so like, I'll give you an example of this. So one of the women that I used to follow, I can't unfortunately actually remember her name now to give credit to it, but one of the things that she spoke about was, so she would create an offer for a product, like a course, a program, something like that. And she would add no structure to it. So she would sell it before she had even created anything for it, because she believed that she would put this, this advert out there, she would create the kind of sales page for it. And the energy of that would attract the people who needed this the most, who really wanted this. And then she believed that she would get this inspiration would come through her for what exactly was needed for that course, for that program, for those specific individuals. So the structure came later. So she actually went with the feminine energy first, the flow, and then created the structure following that. So the flow was what actually inspired the structure rather than the structure inspiring the flow, which was a really interesting concept. And I really liked these new ideas and just new ways of doing business, and really wanted to start incorporating that into my own business. So I started really putting this emphasis on flow. I was like, I'm only going to create when I feel inspired. And that was basically what I based my business structure on, so to speak, was I'm going to create when I'm inspired and I'm going to put it out there. But what happened as a result of this, so I had, like I say, I was very much in the masculine in my corporate job, I was getting burnt out, flipped it completely 180 to I'm going to be all in the feminine. I really don't want structure, I don't want all of that, I don't want scheduling, I'm just going to be in the flow. And I'm here to tell you that even if you have a strong preference for flow, for that feminine energy, and in your business, you still need to have the masculine. This is why it's useless to think of these two energies like male and female, because it's not specific in that way. We all have to use both of these energies to operate. It's just that, like I say, we have more of a preference to use more of one than the other, and at varying times as well. So what I was finding was, when I was just constantly in this place of operating from the flow, from the feminine energy, was that I wasn't getting things done. So I was creating things inspirationally when I received that kind of download and I was putting it out there. And I was getting results from it. But I kind of just felt everything was a little bit all over the place, like the feminine can feel sometimes, where it's like, oh, it's just here and then it's there. And it made me feel less in control of it. It made me feel like there was all this flow happening and it could like literally just go all over the place. So a really good analogy to use when thinking about masculine and feminine energies is the river. Think about how a river is put together and how it works. So the riverbed, the banks of the river, is the masculine. It is the structure that is created. And the water is the feminine, is the flow. You have to have both in order to have a river. If you just have the banks of the river and the riverbed, it's just rock and rubble. It's not a river. And with just the water, with nothing to contain it, it's just a puddle. It goes all over the place. It dissolves into the ground kind of thing. It is not a river. So this is why you need to have the structure in order to allow and enhance the flow and to protect the flow. the masculine protects, it is a protector. And again, this is not just about, men and women. We have to protect our own energies. That is our masculine coming out within us to protect our feminine flow, to protect that intuition and that inspiration. And another big thing that I was finding was when I was really in that flow energy all of the time and I had no structure, was I just didn't feel, for me personally, that I was present with either my business or my kids. So because I didn't have like set times when I would go and, work on things for my business, I was kind of trying to borrow little moments throughout the day to get things done. And it meant, like, and as much as I hate to admit it, but I'll be honest, I'd have my kids coming to me and I was on my phone trying to get things done because I got into that flow state. And then they were trying to pull me out of it because they needed something. And I was sometimes kind of ignoring them a bit and, or brushing them off, trying to get them to, go and play for a bit. And getting frustrated because my flow had been completely, stopped. Because, you know what it's like if you get in that flow, in that rhythm, and it's just coming out and it's so easy and we're all about ease, and that gets stopped and cut off, it's really frustrating because it can take a bit of time to get into that flow state. And so I just found like I was actually getting really irritated with my girls, which I did not want to be doing. That is not what my business was supposed to be about. It was about marrying the two of, being a mum, being a caregiver, whilst having a creative outlet in my business. And so I started to introduce structure because I just felt like I literally had no other option. The flow purely on its own was not, I could see very quickly it was not going to be enough to support the framework of the type of business that I wanted to create. So I started to look at my week. How could I put in structure? And even this took a bit of a shift in mindset. So initially I went really like 9 to 5. I think just because your kind of old work brain kicks in. And I was like, okay, how can I get 9 to 5 hours for my business? But then at the same time, I still want to be around to do my mum stuff. I still want to be about for the kids and I don't want to lose out on time with them. And it kind of just felt like it was impossible. It felt like, well, the only way to do it was to put, my youngest into nursery or to childcare, which was for me personally not something I wanted to do. One of the big things that I've always had is that I want to be the main rearer, shall we say, because I can't think of a better word, of my children. I want to be the person that has the most influence on raising them. For me, as a mother, that is a big part of motherhood that I want. And I've always wanted from a very young age, like even before I thought about actually having physical children, even when I would play with my dolls at home. And so, but I still want a business. I still want to have that creative outlet for me, something that allows me to tap into something that being with my kids doesn't always allow me to do. So I had to start really thinking outside of the box. When could I get these structured times throughout the day and throughout my week that was going to allow me to dedicate that time to get into that flow space, to know that I wasn't going to be interrupted in that flow space for my business. And so that when I was working on my business, I could be present with my business. And when I was with my kids, I could be present with them. And of course, you still have moments where, you're in your business or you're working with your kids and you suddenly get this moment of inspiration and you just need to jot something down. But that is completely different to this constant, trying to get something tangible done in your business whilst you're still kind of looking after your kids. It's really not, for me personally, it's not a nice dance to do because you just feel like you're not being present with anything. You're just fleeting constantly. So what my week now looks like, and I actually feel really good about this. For me, this feels like a really nice balance right now of what I need. So Mondays is my main work day. So I work from 10 until 3:30. And that's kind of like my 9 to 5 that I have. So my littlest one, she goes to a childminder who is absolutely amazing. I completely called her into my life. I wasn't going to just accept anybody. It had to be somebody who was really in alignment with our parenting values. So for us personally, nursery was kind of out of the question for this, because I really wanted like a home away from home feeling. I wanted her to have a lot of one-on-one support. Certainly at this age, she's only 2.5. But again, that's just us personally and what we wanted. And she just came into our lives. She literally lives like a few roads around the corner from our house, which is amazing. And not only that, she's becoming an amazing friend as well. Her kid goes to the same kindergarten as my eldest, so we're starting to enjoy doing car shares, and it's just been amazing. Anyway, so my youngest goes there on a Monday for during the day. So she goes there from 9:30 till 3:30. But for us, that's it. That is our biggest chunk of childcare that we have per week. And I was a bit reluctant to do it to begin with, but actually it is really enjoyable for me. So not only do I get a really big allotted time to get into that flow state, and it's when I can do really chunky things on my business, but it just allows me that bit of headspace. It's that little bit of time away from my kids, which I think we kind of all need from time to time. I think even on a weekly basis, just that little bit of time away just helps us to be the mom that we want to be. You know, it allows us to reset like our nervous system from all of the questions and from the constant, you know, being pulled in this direction and that direction. So I have Mondays. I also do Wednesday evening, 6 until 8, which is really, it feels like a really nice balance for us, this, because we have dinner all together at 5 when my husband finishes work. So we still have that really nice little bit of family time. So on those days, I make sure that dinner is ready for 5, so that I'm not rushing to then get into my little workspace. And then when I finish at 8, sometimes the girls are in bed and asleep by that time, but most of the time they don't tend to go to bed. They sort of start going, you know, getting into bed at 8. They have a much later bedtime that just seems to suit both of them at the moment. So if I want to, I can still do bedtimes on those days. And it is only 2 hours, but I just have to pick things in those 2 hours that, you know, what is the best use of my time in those 2 hours. So it might be checking through emails. It's normally doing like techie stuff, not necessarily doing videos and creating things for products and services and that kind of thing. And then the other time that I have is Saturday morning. So I get up at about 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, and I start my sort of work morning at about 6:37 and finish at around kind of between 10 and 11 time. And my husband looks after the girls whilst I'm doing that. And again, it just feels like it really works for our family, because when I finish at 10, 11, we still have the rest of the day together. That is why I push myself to get up early, because I just don't want to waste, you know, time at the weekend for us, because my husband works 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, is precious for us. And so that really feels like this works for me right now, for me, my family, my business. So I get between about 11 to 12 hours a week of structured time for my business. And what this has allowed me to do, it has allowed me to get that presence back that I want, to be present in my business in that time, because I know that when it's this day, when it's this time, I can go and do this. I can schedule things in to do this. When I get an idea and inspiration, I know that I can then carry it out on those days. it allows me to be present with my kids, because I am not desperately trying to fit in and squeeze in little moments of time to get things done. Because I know, like I say, if I have this inspiration, this idea that comes to me, I can just jot it down and know, okay, right, I can do that on Wednesday night. I can do that on Monday. I don't have to wait ages or wonder when I'm going to get that pocket of time in order to do something. And I just really enjoy being able to be present with each different thing that I am doing. So this at the moment is what is working for me. And this is probably going to change a little bit, because my youngest is going to start doing kindergarten when she's 3, which is going to be in sort of about 8 months' time. And she'll be doing 3 mornings a week. So it is going to change again. But this is the thing about being a mumpreneur that I'm really finding is adaptability is something that you have to do, and you have to get good at it. Like, if there's any skill that you want to focus on really flexing and doing well, it is being adaptable, being flexible, being able to change. And that is a very feminine practice to do that. Because and I think a lot of us are naturally very good at this as mums, because we know that everything, things change very quickly when you're a mum. The speed at which our kids develop and change who they are and what they're capable of doing and what their interests are. Things throughout our day change based on what happens to our kids, when there's a nap, when there's a late night. We're constantly having to adapt things. And it's exactly the same for our business and for structuring our business. So for me, as long as I have an intention that I want to have, roughly, like I say, 11 to 12 hours per week to be able to have time for my business, that when that actually happens and takes place can change. Not every week necessarily, because I think that would be a bit too hectic for me to keep on top of. But like, for example, at the moment, we're on holiday for 2 weeks back in our hometown, visiting friends and family. And so it has meant we've had to have a bit of a change around to when that time is. But it's just meant that I've looked at our diary, I've looked at what we've got in, what our plans are, and I've just moved those pockets of time about. But there's still structure. So it might not be, for example, I've lost Mondays as one of my work days because I don't have the childcare whilst we're away. But I've just picked that time up and placed it in and slotted it in other days throughout the week. And this then allows you to have that flow. It's like I said about the riverbank. It's that masculine protection of time dedicated to allow for flow and creativity. And I found that when I was not having that time put in throughout my week, that my feminine was almost feeling in fear of, when am I going to get this? I've got all this creativity, I've got all of this artistry that I need to put forward, and I've got all this stuff that wants to come through me and be created, but I don't have any certainty of when I'm going to be able to do that. So my masculine protects that for me. That structure creates that protection for me, and that framework in which I can allow that flow to come out. So I want you to have a think about, in your business, where are you using structure and flow? And where are you enjoying that? Have you got too much structure and you're just not allowing yourself enough time to get into that flow space? Have you got too much flow and you're a bit kind of scatty with it, and there's no consistency, there's no kind of security that you're getting around when you're going to have time to do the things that you want in your business, and that you need to add a bit more structure in? And when it comes to thinking about structure, think outside of the box. It does not have to be 9 to 5 just because we were used to a corporate world in our previous lives before becoming mums. You can work in the evenings, you can work really early in the morning. It's whatever suits you, your lifestyle and your family. That is what works. And the great thing, especially about doing things online, is that if you're catering to people all over the world, well, there's time zones, isn't there? So actually, if you find working at 5 o'clock in the morning is like the best time for you, that's when you're in your most creative space, it's when the kids are still asleep, there will be people, lots of people still out there who are able to receive what it is that you want to put out there and do at that time. It does not have to, you don't have to always align yourself with everybody else. It's like one of the women I follow on YouTube, Mina Irfan from the Universe Guru. I love her stuff. She is a self-made millionaire through her business. And she's a mom of 3 and her stuff is just really inspirational. And I love how she has this really like this goddess energy when it comes to saying, I schedule things when it's right for me. If people want my work that much, if people want to, so she was talking about, she's starting to do in-person intensives and she's doing them in different countries. And she's getting a lot of people saying to her, oh, can you come to my country? Can you come to my hometown and do this? And wanting her to move and adapt. And so often we're told the customer's right, do everything for the customer. But she's like, no, if you really want my services, if you really, really want what it is that I'm offering, you will get off your asses and you will be there. I have been on courses before where people have been dialing in because of the time zone difference at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, because what this person is offering is desperately what they want. So you don't have to adapt your business around your customers. And I know that can sound really bad because it's like, well, the customer comes first. But if you are attracting the right types of soulmate clients, then those people are the people that want what it is that you're offering so much that they are willing to move around that. They are willing to restructure for, it's only a short period of time anyway, most of these things, to get what it is that you're offering. It does not mean that you have to disrupt your whole family life and your flow and your creativity in order to serve other people. You can still serve people and do it on your terms. So think about this in your own business. Where are you maybe not getting that balance quite right? Again, it's always about tapping into how does it feel? Does it make me feel good when I do this? If getting up really, really early in the morning makes you feel groggy as shit and then you're really crap with your kids, maybe that is not the right routine for you. And if staying up really late to do something, again, is not when you can tap into that zone of genius and then you feel crap the next day, then maybe again, you need to have a shift around. But play around with different structures as well, because it's not until we kind of have one of those crap nights or those really early mornings that we realize whether it's something that we enjoy or not. Don't be afraid of the failure. It's not even failure anyway, it's perceived failure. But don't be afraid of getting it wrong, because as soon as you get it wrong, then you instantly know how to get it right. So just really dive into that. Knock out the stupid ideas about masculine and feminine energy being male and female. We need both of them. It's what your preference is. So tap into that. What is your preference, your preferred energy? Are you more in that feminine? Are you more in that masculine? And also zone it out for your business as well, because for some of us, it might be that just in the area of business, we really love tapping into that masculine energy so much more so. And actually we thrive off of that. But just make sure that if you are tapping into masculine energy for your business, because that's what you want, but your preference in general is still to be in that feminine energy, into that flow. Make sure that you have a practice when you come out of your business zone that gets you back into that flow. It's like when I was in that corporate job, I just did not know how to get myself back into that flow state. I may have been able to sustain that career path longer if I'd have been in the masculine in my workspace and then knowing how to get myself back into that feminine space when I got home. So play around with like when you're using these energies and how they are supporting you in your business as a mom, with your kids, and just in life in general. Because like I say, once you can tap into what your own preferences are for using these two energies and the balance that you need, that is when you kind of hit the secret sauce. And that is what I'm really starting to discover in my business as well as my life. So I'm going to leave it there and wrap it up. Have fun with exploring your energies and diving into them and learning more about them. And I will catch you in the next episode. Have a beautiful day, whatever you're doing. Bye.